Hi guys, it's me, Joseph Anderson again, and for this video that I will be dedicating to Veterans Day in 2025, I was thinking to myself, what would be a good movie for this holiday to celebrate all the veterans? Which, by the way, I salute everyone who sacrifices for this wonderful country of ours. So anyway, I decided, I would think of what would be appropriate for today. Well, it turns out that there's been a very big oversaturation of movies that are dedicated to, say, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Korea, the wars that took place in there, and, and more recently the Gulf War in Iraq and stuff. So I figured, what would be a different way to go about this? What would be more older war I could talk about? That'd be the Civil War, the American Civil War. And this movie is the epitome of that. This is a very fine movie called Glory. I'm going to tell you, it is absolutely glorious, this movie title. And this movie as a whole is absolutely great, stupendous, whatever, whatnot that you can say. I can't say anything bad about this movie. And the only got good praise to it. Now, this is a lot shorter than, say, Gods and Generals or Gettysburg. I believe that Gettysburg clocks in at almost 4 hours, so that's out of the question for right now. So with Gods and Generals, which I believe goes for about the same amount of time, about 3-4 hours long, so I'm not going to cover that right now, but this is actually quite a marvelous slow movie. Not only is the acting very good in the movie, and the music is phenomenal, for the time period and whatever, but it's very historically accurate to the point that if I were teaching history in my social study class on the Civil War, I would feel very comfortable in playing this movie for anyone that watch it, because it's so good and so accurate to what happened during the Civil War. The first actual war that took place in America that were to be number one, the Americans versus other Americans, and second of all, because it was the first war that ever took place after the Industrial Revolution. So this movie's like kind of important for that reason alone, that it talks about that kind of thing. Plus, it also talks about some of the tactics and strategy that were employed from the American Revolution, which was really kind of crappy and antiquated at this point in time. Now, I'll get to that in a minute, but this movie takes place in the Civil War, obviously, war to free the African American people from slavery in the South. That's the Confederacy. That would include states like Texas, Florida, Carolinas, Virginia, Mississippi, and Alabama, and Georgia too. And I think Tennessee too. I'm not 100% on that, but anyway, those places firmly hold their beliefs that slavery was a way to go for the economy and stuff, which I believe that if President Trump were around back then, I'm sure that he would probably endorse, American slavery back then. Really put that out there into the ether. Anyway, that will also come into play in this movie big time, because the African American Regiment, the 51st Regiment in Massachusetts, was actually fighting against all that stuff, all that bad slavery and whatnot. So yes, this movie does touch upon that a lot, but it turns out that the character of Robert Gould Shaw, Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, played by Matthew Broderick, in his finest movie role yet, was actually pretty instrumental to the African Americans in history, as well as a friend and partner, Major Cabot Forbes, played by I think an unrated Cherry Alvarez, who, thank God, his American accent is spot on. His I think Carolinian accent is actually pretty good. This movie marks my introduction to Cary Elwes. That and Twister. But in Twister, he was an evil scientist. Just out there for the money. So this movie is actually pretty good because he plays a good guy, but he plays more of I wouldn't say a stickler for the ways, but more like a stickler for social protocol in the army, at least. I'll touch on that in a minute too. But there are some interesting things in the movie, because the music was very good, and the African American people that are in the movie actually do touch upon the fact that many of the slave songs and whatever were actually the basis for soul music, gospel music, and I guess you could say rap too. That was like the very early basis for rap. As well as I'm sure there are some other musical genres that are involved in it too. Like when they sing the song that's pretty touching. And anyway, these two gentlemen have to be the commanding officers for the first one of the first American black regiments, which I don't know when that died out, but just having a regiment just for one race of people is kind of stupid and racist by itself. Having the commanding officer be up here and having all the black soldiers down here is kind of dumb and kind of racist in itself. But eventually some people do end up getting promoted and whatnot. Like Morgan Freeman, who gets promoted to Sergeant Major John Rollins, which I like to think is a precursor to the character of Sergeant Johnson, also a Sergeant Major. So that could also be a good time for this game and movie and stuff in the movie of in the game of Halo, the franchise. Plus we got the character of Denzel Washington too. Please, very good private trip, and he's got a very special role too as being a former slave, and he tends to be a little white ass about everything, like calling you a boy and all this other stuff, and bringing up the black man struggle and stuff like that. Plus the fact that he's saying, "Oh, white man give you a gun and nades to all that and stuff," which is pretty funny. There's always that one guy in the group that's always like like a little bit of white ass, like this guy is, and his performance is so good that he even won himself an award. So very good job with that. So anyway, they have to shape up these men into soldiers, which they do by the end of the film. And unfortunately, they'll all die in the end. Yeah, big spoiler alert, they all die in the end trying to capture Fort Wagner. I think it's in South Carolina, but I also believe that was Fort Sumter, but I was mistaken. And also, I thought there was another big fight in that big type of a big fort battle before the big beachfront assault. So anyway, I was mistaken on that too. Anyway, these two men are ordered by the higher ups in the army to shape these black folks into a fighting regiment. At first they set them up to do like a menial cleanup task and all that, but that's not good enough. They want to prove themselves as an army unit, which I would too if I ever joined the army. I wouldn't want to be doing that cleanup tasks and the stupid work tasks of say doing regular menial work and stuff. I want to prove myself, and I want to show myself as equal to any other regiment in the army. So yeah. Now also, I should point out that there's another character in there called Thomas Sills, played by Andre Brager, and apparently he knew Robert Shaw from the past before joining the army. So this is such kind of strange because they go with the protocol. These people are friends, but yet at the same time, when you're in the army, you're expected to follow protocol of the army. There's no favoritism. Like for example, if I knew someone in the army, higher up in rank and whatever, I would be expected to call them sir. I would be expected to follow the orders within moral reasons, of course, and and other stuff too. So even though I'm their pal and stuff, I would still be expected to follow the orders and do everything else the army commands of me, regardless of my race or ethnicity or religion or whatever. And they touch upon this too, being that Shaw goes back and forth between referring to his Thomas as his friend and me being considered a fellow soldier and underling for him. Now, let's see here, when Shaw takes on these black soldiers, these black men as soldiers. He knows that they're very undisciplined and very some of them may not even know how to read. Some of them may not have to perform under pressure of being assaulted by another army. In this case, people who probably owned their family or their friends or even themselves as property. So there's more of an incentive for the black soldiers to actually fight back against the one that enslaved them and probably did unspeakable things to their family or other distant relatives. And they touch upon this in the film too. And let's see. So there's also Private Trip that always constantly reminds us about what the white man did to everybody else. Especially the very powerful part where he is whipped by another commanding officer for running away from the main troop because he was looking for shoes for himself and for other people as well. So well, Robert Shaw had to look on and see him getting whipped and beaten up by this other officer. And it really speaks a lot because he was quiet during this whole thing while this guy was whipping him. And he implies that it was done multiple times. Maybe for the same reason, looking for shoes from them, because black people were not treated as seen as white people back then. Even worse than it is now, which is very unfortunate that many things didn't improve that much over back then. But when I say they were uneducated, I mean that they were former slaves were not treated with respect. Obviously, they weren't given like a proper schooling. They were, if at all, they were only taught the Bible. They were only taught to the bare minimum. And I believe that it was illegal for a southerner to teach a black person how to read. They might get too much power and too much knowledge for their own good. That's might become an issue in the movie, at least. So anyway, you could definitely see a big type of a big type of disparity between the black soldiers and the white soldiers that you would see later on in the film. First of all, because they don't earn a uniform till later. Second of all, because they don't really have that many pairs of shoes and socks for the people that are holding them up on the black soldiers, which is very unfortunate. Until later on, Shaw sees all this and figures out that the reason why Trip deserted the troops was because he wanted to find shoes for himself. His magic shoes, if you will. So he goes on tirade to the big military suppliers for the people, which that actor was known for being in Bridesmaids. In Bridesmaids also. That's why I know him from the best. So anyway, he goes on tirade and he wants 600 pairs of shoes and 1,200 pairs of socks for the black regiment. which makes a lot of sense, and that the guy was very smugly holding out on the people. So, with that, this white officer was giving this guy hell over holding out on his shoes. Meanwhile, they were over there, drinking brandy, having a good time, having a party and all that. So I think that this guy Shaw was actually one of the big time guys for civil rights. Well, one of the thoughts for that. So anyway, there was also a thing where they were making a big deal over paying the black soldiers equal money to the white officers and the white soldiers, which, that is very important, equal pay and stuff, because like Private Tripp says, a black guy can stop a bullet the same way as a white guy can. You could see that for women, for transgender people of today's problems, today's issues now too, and that I would happily take a black guy, sacrificing himself for my own safety, the same as I would accept a transgender officer or a gay soldier. It's all the same. They all deserve our respect. So anyway, they were like, I think the black people were being paid like $10 or something like that, and the white people were being paid like $13 for their services. So I don't know what that would be in today's money, but it's helpful. It might seem like a little difference, $3 or something like that. But in back then money, if you do a conversion, it's like a lot more than just $3. It's like something like a $50 or $100 difference. So it's a very big difference. And of course you have Private Tripp making a big stick out of it, which makes a lot of sense. And so what does Shaw do? He said, if my men will not be paid equally to the white man, nobody will get paid. So then he rips up the check, his own check. Therefore, he encourages the other people to do that too, which is really nice. Anyway, there's also minor things too. Like, for example, they have one kid who is a blood non-combatant officer who does the drumming for them and marching and stuff, which I find real weird because he plays the snare drum, which looks like a toy compared to now, but he's mute, and when Private Tripp is blowing him out over bringing the drum into the tent with them to practice, Sergeant Rollins gotta, protect him so that he's mute. Stop yelling at him. So I gotta say, why would a soldier like that bring their snare drum into the tent to practice? Why can't you do it outside in the woods or something? Within the perimeter of the camp. Practice, not to the other guys. And I find it interesting that the guy is mute, so he can't actually speak at words and stuff, but he can actually use the music to speak out. It's a little minor thing. Also, I find it really interesting that Private Trip actually said that he's going to become the president of the United States one day. Which I'd be really surprised if they ever have Denzel Washington play a U.S. president one day in a movie. Where I find that very hilarious. I mean, I love the guy to death. He's a very good guy. It's just the movie, The Book of Eli, on my Netflix listing right now. Now, I can't wait to see that. But I love the Virtuosity and this movie too. Among many others. But Gladiator, etc. But anyway, it's really funny that they mentioned that he'll be the president of the United States one day. And it so happened that it only took about 150 years after the emancipation of slavery and the end of the American Civil War that we finally got our first African American president. I mean, I liked him. Was he the best president ever? No, I wouldn't go that far. But Barack Obama is the first president that I ever voted for, and I'd love to do it too. I would really vote for him this many times in my lifetime. So anyway, it's a bit of, and I believe I have another presidential stuffed animal for them, but that's when I thought right now for this video. So anyway, well, another thing that I like in this movie is a minor detail that they have an Irish, sergeant or corporal, and it's really funny because he refers to all of his men as boyo, which isn't a slap in the face of African American, being called boy and stuff like that, less men and whatnot. But the term boyo is more of Irish terminology. So it does not do with slavery per se, but it might seem like that to someone that doesn't know anything about the way Irish people talk and whatnot. It does be funny. That and the word Negro in the movie. So there's that too. I got that from this movie and from the movie and from the game BioShock, in which Frank Fontaine as the character of Atlas referred to the guy as Boyo, which is kind of funny. He's not black or anything, it's the way Irish people talk. So that's pretty nice. Also, a little minor thing in the movie is the fact that they portray the regular, down in the dirt, soldiers and stuff, the privates, as having their own military training and stuff, getting ready to beat up the enemy army and whatever, and dealing with the pressures of having to fight against multiple waves of oncoming guys that want to kill them and probably enslave them and that kind of thing too. So there's more running on them scoring a victory. But also, it touched upon the differences between the regular private training for army action but they also comment on the differences between officer training and horseback sword saber combat as well. Now, when you think of a military saber, you see them holding a saber like this, charge, all of that. But besides being for leaders and for cavalrymen and for being symbolic of like leadership and command and all that, there were no reports of injuries being caused by a saber in combat in a war. In any war, actually, because firearms easily trump over sabers at most situations, except for really close combat, and as a last resort when there's no more ammunition thereabouts. So that was, I believe, that was carryover from the Revolution as well. With sabers, not so much with bayonets, because bayonets are some whole different group of melee weapons. That's part of a gun. Whereas a saber, you need to actually sweep off from a horse or from a standing point. Whereas with a bayonet, you just jam them right in the belly or something. So anyway, they show Private Bush Hearts, played by Damon Kennedy, the 7th Irish officer on his own command. By the way, he said, "Come on, stab me. Don't pick on me, just stab me." Which kind of reminded me of when Morpheus was practice training with Neo when he said, quit trying to hit me and hit me. I don't know if that was a direct reference to that movie or not, but it's super funny. So anyway, these guys are getting kind of tired of doing cleanup work and basic manual labor for the forces, which is actually very racist, being that they were probably former slaves and probably descendants of slaves and that kind of thing. So would I be really degrading for them? So I wanted them to be promoted to active duty. So then they were ordered to clean out this little town full of innocent people. And you see them all going at it, attacking people and stuff, like little children. And even one of the other officers, when the other platoons or regiments, and that's the children. That harkens back to the whole slavery thing about the black slaves being very infantile in their mentality and stuff. Where the only one that actually shows real smart and real strategy is Sergeant Major Rollins, as well as Corporal Thomas. Which, okay, yeah, that checks out pretty well as far as accuracy goes. I don't know if it was actually Major Rollins, Sergeant Major Rollins, or a Corporal Thomas, but they did pretty well. And when they have assaulted a woman once and slapped her in the head, where the other army corporal just shot the guy he was saying that it was her fault for not. I hope you learned a valuable lesson. You just punched the wrong person. You just shot the guy, and you say that it's her fault. And you shot the guy for laying his hands on a white woman. That was so inappropriate for this effect. Now, to tell you that, now to get into the tragedy of war, because they are promoted to attack Fort Wagner, a fort that was never fully captured. I don't know if it was because it was beachfront or because the ocean over there. But it was actually pretty nice that they shot all that. Really nice. Almost like the invasion of Normandy in France. So anyway, they were the advanced very slowly at first to take this fort on the beach. Canada tree from the fort over to the Union soldiers. It was very scary, but everyone in the regiment was pretty spot on as far as trying to go forward and don't want to take the fort and stuff from the Confederates. And Shaw was over there leading it like they would in real life in the past. But my question is, when they're going into fighting these very bad people and stuff, why would they be into it? Like going a brisk walk, it would pretty much try there first. They were very easy targets. They were very slow moving targets. Anyone can shoot with a cannon a whole lot. When some of them do get shot, unfortunately, but then they broke into the front. They run into a big fortress, if you will. Now, my father said to me, he said, why did you use hit and run tactics like guerrilla warfare? And then he said that was actually a really poor choice of words there. Being that all of these soldiers, with the exception of Sir Elway and Matthew Broderick, were black, so that was kind of weird. We put it, but guerrilla tactics refer to hit and run tactics, and basically making yourself as small of a target as you can, whereas the people there were just like marching one by one. The people there were marching like side by side, like four striker soldiers and stuff. So it was kind of like a war of men running at this fort. And I think that was a direct carryover from what happened during the Revolution on the British side. Because the British during that war were very regimented, very solid. They were very and they were pretty much easy targets. And I would think that with the American Civil War, they would learn, our forces would have known by then that this was not a very good strategy. That the hit and run tactic, the one or two soldiers at one time would be a better way to attack an enemy fort or an enemy group of soldiers rather than just meet like marching one by one next to like formation 4 or 5 soldiers for a beachhead invasion. So yeah, that's why the Civil War was actually one of the most, if not the most, bloody American war we've ever fought because of poor tactical situation like this. In fact, I remember there was another Civil War movie where they had people trying to come by the hill against Confederate officers, and then they had the cannons all set up on top of the hill. So when the people actually reached the top of the hill, or reached the top of the whole area, the Confederates let them have it with a big barrage of cannon fire. So like they're working the hardest to get up this hill, up this low hill, to this whole area, and then they get pounded by the first barrage of cannon fire. I guess the idea was to have so many men be killed that by the time that they reload the cannons and the guns and whatnot, that the Union Army would already be there to take a round on them. But that doesn't make any sense to have so many meat shields right there. That was a very big waste of soldiers and resources too. So anyway, they do have that in it too. They do have they do have the Confederate soldiers shooting down at like the people over there that do have they have a little battle stand in which the invading soldiers have to go down into it and then up again up the hill to fight the soldiers, and it is a big colossal mess. I mean, the Confederates on their part did have a winning strategy when doing that, but and also they had I forgot what you call them. I don't want to say cow traps, but they had like pointed sticks coming out of the bottom of the valley to make horses not an issue. That was a pretty good strategy, by the way. So the only men could get around that and whatever. So that was actually a fascinating strategy, probably from the revolution and whatever. So anyway, they had that there. And then they also had the little valley there where the men had to run up to get them. Well, the Confederates shot dead, and I have to high ground and that kind of thing. So anyway, as that was going on, we got a shot made a final speech for the men to fight like hell for the cause, and he ended up getting shot in the process when he was trying to make a final push for the main everything. So when he got shot, it was basically a rallying cry for Pirate Ship, for all the other black soldiers there who were treated he more or less equally under as being this father figure for civil rights and whatnot. So when he died, everyone was pissed off. They wanted to get back at the Confederates of China, as well as the whole Confederacy as a whole. So they were they fought back against the Confederates on this little ridge there, and then you hear all the music swelling up as if they're gonna finally conquer this fort, this goddamn fort. And then this goes back to another problem I have with the tactics of the strategy. Is that under the leadership of Major Forbes, who now like all these people, because he grew up with them and he mentored with them and he spent more camaraderie with them. They've seen some bad stuff together and they fought together and all that. So when they all charging into some part of fort, they met with a bunch of cannons and guns. So they are all shot and killed right at the crescendo of the music. And this goes back to the fact that they had a narrow passageway into this narrow opening for them to get the closet of the fortress or fort, and they were all shot down by overwhelming force of guns and cannons and whatnot. Which it's kind of weird that they would have cannons and middle over fort like that, but no. So they were all shot, were all killed in that charge of the narrow little area to the main port area spot. So I like the fact that they had when they were having the master role, I like that they had Colonel Shaw being buried with his other men. That was really touching to see that even in death he's with these people, his men, regardless of what their skill is, regardless of what their creed was, regardless of their national origin. That was actually really nice. No. Bring a tear to my eye if I were there. And so that the Robert Shaw would have been proud of what this portrayal was. So, but yeah, this movie is very, very good. And then they get a little control to say that the fort was then captured and the what ended from the Union side of things. So yay for that. And I like this movie a lot. I like the whole Civil War movies a lot. Although I don't know what the British would consider the Civil War. I mean, the revolution would be considered a Civil War to them. But I don't know what that means, the Civil War. That make it a double Civil War or Civil War times 2 or whatever. I don't know about that. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching my video on Glory. It was a really good movie. I'd recommend it. And get this video for Veterans Day in 2025. I would like to give this movie my happy face seal of approval because it touches upon many things like social inequity at first of the African American Regiment of the 51st Massachusetts. I still don't know where the numbers come from, but whatever. And I like the fact that they cover music, especially musical piece. I like that was basically killed slavery times. I like the way they implied that some of the soldiers were born free men, and that they risked everything to fight the evil of slavery and the evil of the Confederacy. Even though I'm sure that if you ask any mega person, they would say, no, it's not a big deal. Black people enjoyed slavery, and they got in the middle of the day and all that junk. See, if you were forced to work the fields, and if your family was being separated, and the women in your family were raped on a regular basis, let's see how much you would like it. And then they would say something stupid like, oh, the people in the Confederacy, why are they fighting? Why are they fighting over anything? And they would probably say that, oh my God, the Confederacy are the good guys. We worship them every day. Why are the Union fighting with the Confederacy? Anyway, yeah. If you like what you see here, you want to see more of my videos, like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. You can also contact me for future information on my future videos by calling me or texting me at 631-707-3707. And if you like, you can always follow me on Twitter or X if you prefer at PMilstonPro. Also, my email is jjviewingchannel@gmail.com. So, God bless America. All of our troops for Veterans Day. You guys are very special to me, to everyone else in the country. And I would serve it if I had a chance, but I can't. And also know, it's really a very big shame that President Trump and the rest of the Republican Party find it be acceptable to see the troops on the line for food at the food banks and whatever. I find that highly disgusting, highly morally wrong to see the people that sacrificed and who are willing to sacrifice for the good of our nation to be treated like to be treated so poorly. But this is Trump's America, where nothing makes sense, we're in the upside down world. Anyway, peace out, my brothers and sisters. See you in the next video. All you girls and guys in Thailand. Sayonara.